and welcome to City Desk, a behind-the-scenes look at Santa Barbara's top local news stories. I'm your host, Jerry Roberts, joined by an all-star lineup of local journalists for an inside look at these headlines. The City Council is dragged into a high-level smoking hot debate over a new medical marijuana law. A landmark affordable housing program draws grave warnings of parking nightmares in neighborhoods. A new chapter in the endless saga of where to house Santa Barbara City College students, and the drought hammers the local avocado industry as fears mount over the cost of Super Bowl guacamole. Joining me to explore these issues, environmental reporter Melinda Burns, Megan Roberts King, associate editor of the Santa Barbara City College Channels, Nick Welsh, editor of The Independent, and Josh Molina, who covers politics for Newshawk. Thank you all for being here. So Josh, new state law requires the city pass a new measure to regulate medical marijuana. And council members were very blunt with each other in arguing over it. What's the key issue?
Well, the state passed this package of laws, 3 bills, and they affect Santa Barbara real specifically, real quickly, because one of the bills basically says the state is going to regulate medicinal marijuana cultivation. And if cities do not have an ordinance that defines what that means and how to do that, then the state law takes precedent. It trumps it. So Santa Barbara is rushing to come up with some kind of ordinance because the state law would say that anybody in an agriculturally zoned area can grow medicinal marijuana for sale. And in Santa Barbara, there are many residential areas are also zoned for agriculture. So the city had this rushed proposal on the council agenda. And of course, when we talk about this issue, it's always a hot button issue because it goes to people's attitudes on medicinal marijuana, the use of marijuana in general, and whether it's still or should be considered a form of medicine.
But it's here. I mean, it's a settled issue now. And
well, not
soon,
for some people.
And soon in their recreational marijuana is going to be a settled issue as well.
Ironically, you know, the main purveyor of alcohol on the Santa Barbara City Council, Randy Rouse, who owns a nightclub and bar.
Except on election night.
Nothing free on election night. Was the one who was wanting to pass an immediate ban on any kind of medicinal marijuana cultivation. And he felt like, hey, let's just put a halt to this, and we're going to take some time to figure it all out and see what the state law does. And he tried to sneak that in there, and even some of the more conservative members of the council didn't go for that. Essentially, what this law is going to do is Santa Barbara, they want to pass an ordinance. They're going to get something on the agenda for January. It has to go into effect 60 days before the state law goes into effect. So that's January 12th, which is the first council meeting for Jason Dominguez. So they're moving fast on this. And
so what are they going to push all the dispensaries into his district before he gets over there? Huh?
Well, they talked about it, and basically they said that they're going to allow people to grow medicinal marijuana in their homes up to 100 square feet as long as they are using it for themselves, as long as they
So are there going to be dispensaries?
There is one dispensary in Santa Barbara right now. There's one other in the pipeline. I think another one was recently.
He got it, the pipeline. That's good.
Pipeline, yeah. That's what I meant.
How you did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, one just got shot down on Wednesday. One was approved out there by 31 Flavors on St. Nanterre. But what's kind of interesting with this, back in what's called the Wild West of unregulated pot shops, there were supposedly 21 dispensaries in town. And this was why Randy and his wife went crazy and said we need to really put a lid on this. They got it down to 3. 3 allowed. But what's happened, so we now have 0 dispensaries in Santa Barbara. I think there's one in Goleta that's operating. We have 3 that could go, but we have 21 or 20 delivery services. So we don't have dispensaries, but we have the same number of delivery services.
How do you know so much about this?
I'm paid to know this.
No. Okay, so
but it is interesting. It's out of sight, out of mind, and nobody complains about the delivery services, where before everybody was up in arms about the pot shops.
Well, so what happens if the city doesn't pass anything? So if you took Randy's position and said, we're not going to pass anything, then
Well,
what?
what he wanted to pass a ban.
Oh, a ban.
So he wanted
Well, you
to
couldn't-
actually
that wouldn't
stop it,
matter.
which would trump the state law. If they did nothing, then the state law would basically say anyone can grow medicinal marijuana in an agriculturally zoned area, and worst case fears, be able to sell that.
Is this going to be a flashpoint for district elections? Is there going to be a fight about where to put dispensaries, or you think that that the number will be able to be held down to 3?
Well, ironically, none of this matters, probably,
Oh.
because next year.
Thanks a lot for that, Joe.
Exactly. Next year, many of the people in Sacramento believe that the state is going to pass and legalize.
Well, the initiative.
There's going to be an initiative, right? Many in Sacramento think that, and there are multiple attempts going on to get something on the ballot. So everyone thinks it's going to be legal anyway.
Recreationally.
But what's an agricultural area?
Well, residential areas are zoned for agriculture, basically.
So your backyard.
Your backyard, yeah. And that's what Randy Rouse was concerned about. That's what some other people on the council were concerned about. But Kathy Murillo and others were saying, as a practical matter, this doesn't really happen. You don't have people who are growing lots of marijuana and then selling it because they know all about the delivery services, which is part of the other package of state laws, more regulation on who these people are, licensing. So the new law is going to say that if you're a dispensary, you're going to have to get licensed. So you're going to have to pass certain kinds of background checks. It's a way to formalize everything. And there's new laws that have to do with cultivation in terms of growing. Same laws that have to do with farming and agriculture. So we're seeing this transition here.
Is
into the
it a revenue
legalization.
stream? Is it a revenue stream?
Yes.
The
The city will be able to collect a revenue.
Oh, yeah.
And the state will.
So
too.
so if I'm how many gallons
450 gallons
per
max, and between 150 and 450
plants
per pound.
per pound?
of
Oh man, now
marijuana.
we're. How many pounds can
What
you
is that
get?
street
I have
value?
100 square feet.
All right. So the question is, if I'm growing, or say Megan's growing 100 plants in Oceano, and does she have to then pay money to the city for the right to grow those? And how do they know?
If she is growing it for medicinal marijuana purposes, then she can do that.
And she doesn't have to pay.
Oh,
Because it's
But
not
if
for
she's-
sale.
But if
But
she,
if it was being sold, then that's when you have to pay.
yeah. I didn't know. Okay. So anybody can grow it for themselves.
within it's like
how
100
do you
square
enforce
feet in
it?
your backyard.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, what's interesting about the state law is they're going to make dispensaries have their pot tested for THC, for indica, for sativa, for the various properties. So you will actually get a good idea of what you're buying. There'll be some quality control.
I'm very suspicious about your depth of knowledge on this subject. All right. So, just to wrap up.
Yeah, the council discussion was interesting because it turned into a larger debate about views of whether marijuana is good for medicinal purposes, and that's where we got some of the fireworks and Dr. David Behrman there talking
Oh,
about.
he thinks it is. He said that for before it was.
3,000 patients he's seen the variety of
Yeah,
issues.
yeah, but Randy doesn't think so. Better
No.
to just take another shot.
It's better to, I guess, have a beer. I guess I don't know.
All right. So, Nick, Council Member Dale Francisco is leaving office soon, but not going quietly. Why is he so upset about an affordable housing program that seems to be working?
Well, Dale has always been extremely skeptical of this sort of smart growth vision of the future, which says if we can get people out of the cars, we don't need to set aside as much space for parking places. And you can then have more real estate going to housing if you pack people in more densely. You don't have people on the road, so you don't have as much congestion. So you can have more units, less parking, and more affordability. That's the formula, and that's the belief. He doesn't believe people will get out of their cars. He thinks it's a pipe dream that sooner, everybody is going to drive. and it's only the social engineers and the utopian socialist planner types who buy into
Or the
this.
creative class.
Or the creative
younger
class.
creative.
Yeah, the millennials. And it's an interesting question. It's a good point. So the city, to back up, the city zoning setup previously encouraged the development of these big 3,000 square foot luxury condos for sale. So downtown, we saw Chapala One, we see all these big, massive condos for millionaires. And everybody said, this is a nightmare, we need workforce housing. So after this 5-year battle over something called the General Plan Update, they came up with this program, and it's like giving developers crack cocaine, steroids, the whole works, and say, please, baby, baby, please give us some workforce housing. So we're going to give you
Rental housing.
rental housing. We're going to give you big breaks on how many units you can build. We're going to say you don't have to provide but 1/2 of the parking spaces you used to. You don't have to provide any guest parking. So please develop. And guess
This
what?
is known, I think, Nick, as the AUD
I have been
program.
trying not to use
That
that.
is the-
This is a family show.
That's because you don't know what AUD means.
Average unit density.
See?
Oh, man.
That's good. You got it in. Go ahead.
So,
So
it works. It really, Santa Barbara, the way
Well, it
this-
works for the housing, but it doesn't work for the parking.
we don't know
Well,
that
we,
yet.
we don't know if it works yet,
Well,
because nothing's been
Okay,
built.
but 89 units are being built out there by the Galleria. Now, if for all your viewers who've been to the Galleria, know
There are viewers.
there's no neighborhood you could possibly offend by the Galleria. The Galleria is such an offense against any aesthetic consideration that no matter what you built there would be a great improvement. So this is 89 units, densely packed, underparked, 92 bicycle parking spaces, however, out there on outer state. No squawk from the neighbors. It sails through. Go to Bond Avenue, which is like, I think it was 1 block long, and it's about half as wide as this table over there near Santa Barbara Junior High. And this woman named Monica Calles has this single story, it's like barely a bungalow. And so under the terms of the AUD, she's going to build, or she has proposed building, a 4-story box. I think
Where'd you read about that?
I read about it.
All
Right
right,
here.
All right. Is there a point in your future here anyway?
There's a point. It's coming. The point is, it's 7 rooms with. It was basically 25 bedrooms with 25 bathrooms, or maybe 19 bathrooms, and 7 parking spaces. So Dale Francisco goes, do the math. You're going to have 7 parking spaces. You're going to have 19 bathrooms. This is crazy. Where are people going to park? Well, they're going to park on the street. So his fear is all this great utopian vision for affordability is going to be, this massive nightmare for the streets. And that may be true, but there is a sort of a double standard here, because the reality is all the people who live in the nice sort of suburban, urban, genteel Santa Barbara neighborhoods with 2 parking spaces per home, nobody uses their garage for parking. So everybody uses their garage either for rentals or to store all their stuff that they're not going to deal with. And most people cannibalize the city streets already. So it's already happening. He just doesn't want the millennials to get away with
I
it.
think
It's not
he's-
the housing density, it's transportation. I live in a very densely occupied street that used to be, like for student housing for the old Riviera College. So there's 4plexes there, there's a lot of duplexes, there's single family. And it's a nice street, but it's the parking that's
Right.
messed up.
And that's what he's worried about. That the streets are just going to be overrun, mostly by city college students.
It happens. We're lazy. We like.
Well, you
Yeah.
have no parking at City College anyway. You
Oh,
can't
God,
park
no.
at City College. Do most City College students have a car?
I would say most of them that come out of town do. They, we're driving from home, so we have a car that we bring along with us, and we get lazy with it. I know I used to live maybe like half a mile to a mile away from the city, and I'd still drive every day, and then I started to realize that I was part of the problem. And I think a lot of students don't realize that. And it does, it congests the city a lot. I know where I live now in Oceano, it's really hard to find parking because students, even though you need a pass, they still come over and they park for school. It congests where I live. It's difficult to park. So I completely empathize with that.
So it is the fault of the city college.
I would say partly.
I
mean,
think you just
I don't want to
can't,
put it all on us.
you can't blame City College enough. I mean, it's just, you just get away with it.
All right, and on a related, directly related
It is.
story, Megan, you scooped the world with this story about a massive new housing project on Cliff Drive to address specifically the needs of City College students. What's the project and who's behind it?
Well, it's Beach City Complex, which is owned by Ed St. George. I've been kind of following this for over a month now. I've just been kind of hearing little tidbits about private property, thinking about doing something like this. I know it started when I went to a Plump meeting a few weeks ago, and Lori mentioned in an answer to one of the audience members' questions.
Lori Gaskin.
Yes, the president, that she was exploring the idea of, a private partnership where we could have a living area for City College students, like a dorm. And then she did make another mention of it at the Board of Trustees meeting. And one of my fellow reporters said, hey, you should go check this out. So I went down to the Planning Commission Council, and I went and talked to them. I saw the plans, and I did try and get in contact with the management. They didn't really want to talk to me at that time. Understandable. I was the first person to kind of.
So how
pick
big?
it
So
up.
there's an existing building there, or there's several buildings there. What's there
Yes.
now? And where is it
Right.
on Cliff Drive?
Cliff Drive, it's at the top of Cliff Drive. I cannot remember the exact
Loma
numbers.
Alta.
It's yes,
Yeah.
at the intersection between Cliff Drive and Loma Alta.
And what's there now?
It's Beach City Complex. It's just apartments. It's
Four-
mostly
400
Two-story?
yes. There's about 450 beds currently, is how they measure it. Mostly City College students. There are some international.
Is it a
But it-
two-story?
Yeah, there are some two-story, and then I think about three-story buildings currently there. Their plan is to demolish the other two-story buildings, rebuild them all so that they're 3 stories, and efficiently remove all the kitchens, have dorm-style kitchen with juice bar available for students. I like that addition. I think that sounds cool. And yeah, essentially just a dorm.
So
living
how many
area.
units would that make then altogether?
They did not specify exactly how many units that this would
Or
be.
how many beds?
Beds.
Beds.
Yeah, it's about between 1,200 to 1,500 is what the estimate
So from
is.
450 to
Yeah,
1,500.
adding about 1,000.
And I talked to a neighborhood activist who said that she had a conversation with St. George, and he told her 2,000 was the number. I mean, the number keeps changing, but
Right.
it's big.
It's big.
It
Of course,
is
it
big.
basically just replaces the 1,000 apartments that were lost for City College students out in
Tropicana.
Isla Vista when the
Tropicana
Tropicana
Gardens.
properties, there were 3 big, apartment
Right.
buildings were bought by the university.
And-
So
and
those are all going to be
isn't it-
occupied by UCSP.
Eventually.
Isn't it
yes.
better to have them living closer to
Well, I
school?
don't know. I haven't decided yet.
That is
I have
the
5 more questions.
They don't have to get in their cars.
So the 450 units now are not dormitory per se.
No.
They're not reserved for City College students.
No, not per se. I know that it is, more City College students are going to live there. It's right in between the 2 campuses. It's just logic that those are the kind of people that are going to be gravitating towards going there, and then who's going to want to move in with a bunch of
But
City College
if Nick wants to
neighbors.
move in there, he can.
But
There's
wait
no
a minute.
laws.
But for now. But
Yes.
when it becomes a dormitory, then Nick can't move in.
Yes, it'll only be for City College students, to my understanding. I don't think UC students will be able to be
But City
residing there.
College is not a partner to it.
No. Lori did make it very clear that at this time right now, this is a private company and complex that is doing this, and that the City College does not have affiliation with it. But
Or with
And-
any housing.
right, no. We don't have the means to do that. We don't have the money. We don't have the time, especially after the Measure S did not pass. We really just can't.
So I don't understand then. How can they limit it to City College students living there if it's a privately owned? Isn't that
Well, if they make it a
against the-
dorm, if you make it a dorm, who's going to want to live there?
Other than you, I know.
Right,
but
other than me.
it just seems like that must violate the law somehow, or it's a Fair Housing Act or something. You know, we only accept people who are enrolled in city college.
To my understanding, a lot of this is going to be worked out in the future. This is going to take a long time. Right now, it is still in the pre-application phase, so I fully aware that a lot of these things, you know, as they go through different processes, different committees, they're going to be changed according to complaints and everything that's going to be addressed.
But there will be one parking space for each bed.
Yes,
That's right.
currently that
No.
is what.
That's not.
No, that's not. Isn't it going to be
Is there?
less parking? Isn't
There's
there?
less parking.
Yeah. So parking is kind of up in the air, to my understanding, right now. What I think I read, and I did forget to bring it with me, the pre-application was that they're going to try and reduce parking. I believe that they said that they're going to try and give. There are still going to be parking spots there. There's going to be less. I don't think it's going to be one per apartment.
But there's not going to be 1,200, right?
Right. No, that's not going to be possible.
By
They're
the way,
gonna-
I'm glad you didn't bring the pre-application and read it here. Because it's just,
I didn't think that'd be
Nick
fair.
is bad enough. But
AUD.
with the AUD, he starts. So parking will be a problem
Yeah,
for the neighbors. The neighbors aren't going to be happy about that.
Right, that's what we've been discussing a lot at Ed Board. But then I know that other campuses like Westmont does not allow their first and second year students to have cars. And I think that that would be a similar way to go. I mean, if you're a freshman living close to Santa Barbara, say you're a native and you're moving into Beach City for the dorm, why would you need a car? Your school is right there. We should be utilizing the alternative transportation that we have offered a lot more. Not to mention they already have Zip cars there, which is a program where the students can go pay some money and use the car for a certain period of time.
Good deal.
And also other car share programs, bike share. They're adding a lot more bike racks, which is great. They're also proposing another, I think it's a bike trail,
Path.
yeah, bike path on Loma Alta, which would be interesting as well.
You have to get up that
So-
hill.
Yeah, there's always that. But I do know that they're trying to take steps to make it so that
Is there a sense of how much the rent would be?
I have not heard any numbers. I
What do
think
they
it's-
pay there now? Do you have a ballpark idea?
I believe it's around 800. I know when I was looking for housing myself, I saw advertisements for it, but it's a lot.
And it gets you what? 800 gets you what?
A bed and usually a double room, so you're sharing with another person, or sometimes it's two other people in a triple, and then they do have a shared kitchen and bathroom right now. But
And UCSB students would not be able to play.
I'm
They
not really
wouldn't-
sure if that's been explored that much. I don't know how many UCSB students would want to.
Right.
But again, you know, I was thinking about that law where they cannot technically discriminate.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't want to. You wouldn't want to move in, right, into a dorm.
No, I would.
living. But that's a really interesting point that I think should be brought up about the UC students.
Yeah.
But if there was a partnership between City College and Ed St. George, then they could come up with some fabricated reason that would hold us up legally as to we're going to get first priority or we're going to be exclusive to City College students.
All right.
But what I heard is that this has
Real
to be
quick.
approved by the Coastal Commission.
Yes.
So, and it has to be
It has
a
a-
big zoning change.
That's
So
some
All
time.
right. All right.
Yeah, they want to. The zoning would definitely
Well,
change.
in that case, Megan, on your 50th birthday, you can come back and talk about this, where things stand. Thanks for.
After everything's been built.
No, it won't be built.
It
The
won't be
Coastal
built.
Commission is. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Thanks. Melinda, the Drought has a big fight between has set off a big fight between Goleta Water District and the South Coast $60 million avocado industry. That seems like a case study of agriculture struggling with lack of water. What's going on?
Yeah, it's been the worst year ever for the avocado industry in Santa Barbara County, and the backbone of that industry are 22 ranches between Glen Ene and Las Varas Canyons to the west,
What's the distance
of
on
Goleta.
that, what you're saying?
15 miles or so. And these ranchers, you know, they're big ranches, some of them 300 acres, probably wouldn't exist as an industry out there unless they without a supply from Lake Cachuma. So they get a special pipeline takes the lake water to them. They use it in dry weather, usually just during the summer. So it rains in the winter and then they use Cachuma water in the summer. Well, with this drought, they have really had a hard time. And while, urban residents in Goleta, 87,000 of them, are very thrifty with water and they've saved all this water and their water use went down and they met the district targets, the Goleta ranchers have increased their water every year, except for this one. And so this year, with the drought, they had terrible fruit, very small volume of, the total volume of the harvest went down. They had to stop picking 3 months early, so they lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. And then on top of that, they had to pay, some of them, $100,000 more in drought surcharges to the Goleta Water District. And these are charges that the district levied in May, starting in July 1st, because they've lost a lot of money in the drought because people use less water, so they had to replenish their coffers. So all the customers in Goleta are paying this drought surcharge, but for the 22 ranchers that grow, the bulk of the avocados, it was like a tripling of their water bills.
So who is there to root for in this? The water district barons or the avocado barons?
Well, it's a tough one because if I were a judge looking at the case, it's pretty hard to say that they were singling out, the district was singling out the ranchers because everybody pays the drought surcharge. They collected like $4 million in drought surcharge, and the ranchers paid maybe $650.
So they're unlikely to prevail.
I think it's a tough go.
Isn't there a lawsuit?
This is the lawsuit, yeah.
And the basis of the suit is that the district should have done a better job managing the
That
water?
it couldn't justify the surcharge. It didn't provide the link that the state constitution requires, showing that they needed to raise the price of water because they're providing such and such a service.
How much water does it take to grow avocado?
74
70
gallons per pound.
Per pound. And how does that compare to almonds, for example?
Almonds, 2,000 gallons per
There you
pound.
are.
But aren't
We
people
gotta-
worried?
We got to close.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
But the other thing about those
Quickly.
ranchers is that their Cachuma water is drying up.
It's on its last legs
so
out there.
they're really up against a tremendous predicament.
All right. Yeah, all right. Melinda's story will be out next week. Yeah, come back and talk about it next time. Okay. Unfortunately, we're out of time for City Desk tonight. I do want a couple of program notes. One, I had a very nice coffee with Lori Gaskin this week, the outgoing head of Santa Barbara City College, and she wanted me to emphasize that she is retiring and not quitting, as she felt we suggested on the show a couple weeks ago. Also, it's Giving Tuesday coming up for TVSB, and I want to thank you all for watching City Desk. And what we do is made possible by TVSB and the use of its facilities. So on Giving Tuesday, please consider giving to help support community media and this show. And that's all we have time for. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Nick. Thanks, Megan. Thanks, Melinda. Thanks to our crew, Angelina Di Pasquale, Shauna Klein, John Garcia, Chad Halleck, T. Lee, Ken Baxter, and of course, Oscar, our director. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next time on City Desk.